Okay, I'd like to thank you for agreeing to be here this afternoon. Today, the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on the CSME met, and yesterday, the Council of Finance Ministers met, COFAP. Prime Minister Brown chaired the COFAP meeting, and I'd just like to invite him to say a few words as to what we were able to achieve yesterday at COFAP.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank the distinguished Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mottley, for the energy that she has brought to the CSME. In fact, in Montego Bay a couple months ago, she actually pledged to assist in reinvigorating the organs of CARICOM as well as the CSME itself. And I have to tell you that she has been a tower of strength for the integration movement, and in essence would have played a significant role in ensuring the functionality of these organs, and at the same time to ensure that there is increased focus on the CSME. And certainly our chairman as well, the Honorable Andrew Holness, would have played his part as well. In fact, it was Andrew who identified the CSME as a critical area for us to ensure that we have a truly functioning community and to move towards the eventual establishment of a single economy. Now, the COFAP met yesterday, and it would have been twice within the last, I'd say, 60 days, after not meeting for at least 5 years. So it shows very clearly that there is a renewed commitment within CARICOM to make sure that CARICOM functions, especially for the benefit of the ordinary man and woman living within the respective member states. Just to cover a few issues that were addressed by the COFAP yesterday, we discussed a regional framework for a deposit insurance system which would establish a level of protection for depositors against losses due to the failure of financial institutions. And the conference urged the urgent implementation by the Council for Finance and Planning for the Caribbean Community CARICOM. And this is especially important considering the failures of BICO, CLICO, and other financial institutions within the region. Even in the case of Antigua and Barbuda, we had perhaps one of the most spectacular bank failures in which we had $1 billion enterprise, the Abeba Financial Group, that went belly up, and my government had to issue a deposit protection bond in the region of $350 million, representing almost 10% of our GDP. So having this type of protection is absolutely important. This is one of the measures which the Council agreed should be pursued within the Financial Cooperation Initiatives to enhance the financial safety net for depositors and even for borrowers and investors in the CARICOM single market and economy, the CSME. We also took follow-up action on the mandate from the CARICOM heads of government, calling for the finalization of some of the relevant instruments by the intersessional meeting in February of 2019 and others by next July. These include a community investment policy, an investment code, an incentives regime, an integrated capital market, starting with the adoption of model securities market legislation. And I know Prime Minister Mottley was very excited about this, so no one will in the future accuse her of poaching any investment in any other country. Now, they also agree that the finalization of a CARICOM financial services agreement should be expedited. These actions will strengthen the regional financial stability mechanisms. The ministers also approved in principle the objectives of the CARICOM credit reporting policy, which, among other things, provides for the regulation of the operations of credit bureaus and cross-border exchange of credit information within the community. Now, this is a very important initiative that will promote financial inclusion for CARICOM nationals as they live and work across the community. And evidently, it will facilitate greater accessibility to credit and at the same time ensure that there is more borrowing to support increase economic growth and development and to create opportunities for people. In fact, it will also help to encourage greater entrepreneurship across the CARICOM space. So having this credit reporting policy and certainly a bureau in which we could exchange information freely in order to facilitate the smooth flow of credit within the region is absolutely important to the business development and certainly to economic growth and development. As concerns continue with respect to the continuing issue of some member states being labeled as non-cooperative tax jurisdictions, the Council urged a more collaborative approach within the European authorities and other relevant international bodies. This issue remains an existential threat for the region, and we are seeking to dialogue with various bodies within the EU and individuals within the EU, obviously at the top political level, so that they can understand the consequences of the actions. I mean, the unilateral decisions that they would have taken that are now impacting on the region, especially in the context of the proposed sanctions and the blacklisting. So this is an issue that we are monitoring very closely, and we will work collectively. In fact, we are hoping that there will be certain interventions made within the next 30 days that hopefully will bring some relief to the various countries within the region to avert any potential blacklisting or, for that matter, any curtailment of technical support or grant aid from the European Union. So back over to you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, PM. With respect to the single market and single economy consultations at the subcommittee, we took some decisions today to recommend to the full conference of heads, because our committee is a body that recommends a number of things that I think will have significant value. The first and foremost is the establishment of a single jurisdiction with single registration for companies across the region. And we believe that this is necessary to boost investment and to reduce both the hurdles and the costs that many of our enterprises will face as they seek to do business across multiple jurisdictions. We agreed on the principle of mutual recognition with respect to companies incorporated in one member state being recognized in other member states. And this, of course, will help significantly in reducing those hurdles and costs. The second major item that we agreed to today to recommend to heads of government, and Chair of Council is here, Prime Minister Holness, is the question of expanding the categories of workers who may travel freely within the region. Right now there are 10 categories, and we've agreed to recommend an 11th category of agricultural workers, primarily because we recognize the importance of being able to attain food security across the region, particularly in these difficult and turbulent times, and coming as we did last year after the realization of what the climate can do, what hurricanes can do, and now we see earthquakes to disrupt the whole production and distribution cycle. And we're conscious and sensitive to the fact that we have to be able to move the region closer to a level of food security in ways that we've not perhaps been as assiduous about doing in recent times. With respect to the Council, we also looked at a recommendation to go forward to heads for the establishment of a CARICOM Law Reform Center, because we recognize that there is a shortage of legal draftsmen in the region, and to that extent, if we can pool our resources to be able to have model laws and to be able to look at reform of laws in social and economic sectors in a way that at the national level we are constrained to do, then we can improve significantly the environment and landscape that our citizens will have to function in. We also agreed to look at the importance of adhering to the implementation plan for the single market and the single economy, and we literally have outlined the measures to be taken to further advance it in the short, medium, and long term. And in that context, we've asked member states to provide regular updates, and we've agreed that as chair, I would work with heads and countries to be able to see where we can bridge the gap to ensure that progress is made in a seamless way. I think all heads are sensitive to the fact that now that we have started back working, and I really want to take the opportunity to thank and congratulate colleague heads, in particular. Prime Minister Brown has been modest. He has now chaired both COFAC meetings, both in Montego Bay and here, and has done so in a manner that has allowed us to move significantly towards the targets that have been set. But Prime Minister Holness also, in anchoring the Montego Bay meeting, I think that those who write in future will look back at Montego Bay as that meeting that had a catalytic effect again upon the regional integration plan. And in circumstances where others were as doubtful as they are, it is of great notice to us that Prime Minister Holness has given the leadership necessary to move forward the integration movement at the pace at which it is moving. I also want to say thank you, because it is all right to call a meeting, but if you don't have a quorum, there can be no progress. And to that extent, therefore, it is of significance to me that this meeting was able to have 6 heads of government attend as a subcommittee, which reflects the political will that there is for this regional integration project to move forward at the pace at which it is moving again. Against that background, we've agreed that it is also critical that we involve the private sector and labor and civil society. And indeed, previously, the institutions had agreed to the establishment of business and labor advisory councils, which are a bit of a misnomer because it also includes civil society representation. But what we recognize is that even as we do that at the national level, it is critical that in our meetings that we recommend to heads that they be a permanent, the encounters with them be a permanent feature of our own meetings, whether before or during, because we recognize that making a success of the regional integration project is not about governments alone, but it is fundamentally about our people. And if our people can be reflected in the areas in which they operate, whether in the private sector, as labor, as workers, or in the civil society organizations which they populate, then it makes the work of government easier, or as I like to say here, many hands make light work in making this a reality. In addition, we address the issue of non-compliance with the revised treaty, which of course affects the timely and effective implementation of decisions and agreed actions. There's no sense us agreeing to things and then not implementing them. And to that extent, Prime Minister Holness has been, and his Minister of Foreign Affairs, have been a force to underpin that we should only agree to that which can become reality in real terms. And to that extent, I believe that there is a greater appreciation that it is necessary for persons to come to meetings with the appropriate mandate and to allow us, therefore, to move forward with certainty and assuredness. Similarly, we agreed that the Community Council, that member states in the Community Council should complete consideration of the proposals for the settlement of disputes arising from non-compliance as expeditiously as possible, and to submit the necessary recommendations and considerations for conference. And this is perhaps an appropriate bridge for me to invite Chair of the Community, Prime Minister Holness, to just say a few words, because truly it is with his blessings that our subcommittees continue to function as we have today, since he is the current Chair of the Community. Prime Minister Holness.
Thank you, Prime Minister Brown. Thank you, Prime Minister Mottley. You know, I guess citizens of all the Caribbean states, the CARICOM states, looking on, may sometimes question the viability or the purpose even of CARICOM. But I think all our citizens can rest assured that the CARICOM institutions are working, are functioning. And to have both the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee and a second meeting of the Council of Finance Ministers is a significant achievement, seeing that they have not met in a really long time. So critical issues that would move the community forward were not addressed. Our citizens, our voters, our electors can rest assured that as leaders we are addressing those issues that are important to them and that are practical and achievable, and we are using our energy to good effect. There is indeed, as has been said by both Prime Minister Brown and Mottley, that there is a renewed energy, and I dare say passion, for a more practical form of integration that will move our entire region, and to collaborate on mutual threats and challenges. And I believe that all goes well for everyone. I think the meeting was a success, and I want to thank both Prime Minister Brown for chairing COFAP and Prime Minister Mottley for handling so well the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on the CSME.
Thank you. SG, anything you'd like to add?
Just to capture the moment and the significance of our three Prime Ministers here. Chairman of Conference, Chairman of the Prime Minister Subcommittee, and the Chairman of COFAP. That is significant. And in my brief history as the Secretary, I don't remember us having a series of confabs in that way that has resulted in some very concrete recommendations and proposals that will be put forward to the special meeting of the Conference of Heads towards the end of this year, most likely in December, under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Holness, a meeting that will be focused and dedicated to the CARICOM single market economy and advancing it. It will receive these recommendations that you've heard about today with a view to having some interesting and important documentation and agreements concretized and signed in February when we meet in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think we've had an excellent 2 days. The work is cut out for us between now and December and then in January. Another significant aspect is the implementation plan, which will be, you can look out for it very shortly on the website of the CARICOM Secretariat. So the CARICOM public can see what it is that we've agreed upon to do and when we have agreed upon to do it. And the accountability that member states will have in updating this plan, or the elements of the plan that pertains to each member state every 6 months. So our leaders are indeed reporting to the citizens of the community on the progress being made. And I look forward to continue working with the Prime Minister so far.
Thank you. I'd like to, there's just one matter that I omitted to brief on, and that is the protocol on government procurement, which has been under consideration of the heads for...
We started the technical work in 2004.
Since 2004. And what does this mean to ordinary citizens of the region? That our citizens may now, over certain thresholds, be assured that opportunities to bid for contracts in other territories will be advertised, and that there therefore is a larger and more level playing field for all of our citizens, recognizing that we are creating those opportunities for them, particularly where governments are issuing contracts for services or for works, major works. I'd like to thank Secretary General, you and your staff, for allowing us to be in this position. We take it for granted that we just turn up at these meetings and that we make decisions, but were it not for the work of the Secretariat literally putting us in this position, we could not be here. And to those who are not present, we would wish you to communicate our sincere gratitude. To my own staff, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Attorney General, Minister of Home Affairs, and all others who contributed, and to the permanent secretaries in those relevant ministries, my own PS, Latin Foreign Affairs, we want to thank them and all of their officers, because once again, this did not happen by accident. And I believe that we need to say thank you in recognition that we have had a smooth and seamless set of meetings, and that we can now go on to our other business, some of which is pleasant and some of which is not so pleasant, with the assurance that we can, as I said earlier today, we have claimed ground, and we now move to newer ground to claim that. Thank you.
And thank you for being a great host.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Shall we take the pictures?